on our 4th wedding anniversary. I specially booked a flight for my flight attendant husband, Mike Smith, to surprise him. But when I walked into the cabin, I unexpectedly saw him in his first love, Kate Chen, intimately entwined in the restroom. I quietly watched without making a sound, but I could hear the chief flight attendant's announcement that today marks the 3rd anniversary of Mike and Kate being together, wishing them lasting happiness. Mike and Kate walked out hand in hand, their faces beaming with sweet smiles. The cabin erupted in warm applause, while my heart felt like withering petals. This time, I will not look back. After getting off the plane, I saw Mike Smith and Kate Chen cuddling in a corner of the airport, unable to part. I walked over with my suitcase and casually took a photo of them, smiling as I said, "Long time no see." As soon as Mike saw me, he suddenly pushed Kate away, looking somewhat flustered. "Emily, what are you doing here?" he stammered. Kate and I were just hugging briefly. I finished a sentence for him. To my surprise, Mike suddenly snatched my phone and deleted the photo I just took. He said to me, "Emily, stop being sarcastic. It's just a hug between siblings." At that moment, Kate walked over, linked her arm with mine, and said with a smile, "Yes, Emily, this is our farewell ceremony with Mike. Something we've done since childhood. Don't mind it." I pulled my arm back and teased, "Oh, really? So that celebration on the plane for your 3-year anniversary was something you've done since childhood too?" "Mike, we've only been married for 4 years," I added. Upon hearing this, Mike looked surprised. "Emily, were you also on a plane just now?" I nodded, indicating that I was. Mike hurriedly explained, "Emily, that was just a celebration for my 3-year work anniversary with Kate. Every colleague celebrates their work anniversary together. Don't overthink it." I scoffed. "Do you really think I would believe that?" Mike suddenly became angry. "Emily, don't be so aggressive. I've already clarified the situation. What more do you want? Kate and I are just friends. Stop." After saying this, I took Kate and left, not even glancing back at me. I stood there in a daze for a moment, then called a car and headed straight to the hospital. Since I decided to leave, the baby in my belly shouldn't be born into an incomplete family. At the hospital, my attending doctor was shocked when I told her I wanted to have an abortion. This child is hard won. Mike and I waited for years and cherish it deeply to successfully conceive. We visited the hospital countless times, and even the doctors and nurses became familiar with us. The attending doctor understands the difficulty of my pregnancy preparation, but at this moment, I look pale and am determined to give up. The surgical light went out, and the operation was over. I gently touched my flat abdomen, feeling a chill in my heart. Just then, my phone rang. I opened it to find a photo from Kate. She was in a sexy maid outfit, lying on a hotel bed. In the next second, that photo was retracted. Immediately after, she sent a message, "Emily, you didn't see the photo just now, right? I was going to send it to my boyfriend." I felt a wave of melancholy in my heart, just as I was about to reply. Mike also sent a message, "I have a work dinner tonight, but be home. You should sleep early." If this were before today, I would have believed him without a doubt. However, at this moment, my gaze unconsciously fell on the small embryo in the glass bottle nearby, and tears instantly welled up in my eyes. This is the fruit of my love with Mike, yet it feels so fragile now. I took a deep breath. Since I've decided to leave, I can't bear this pain alone. I held the tiny embryo and walked back to the home I shared with Mike. The house was still cold and empty. After getting married, I became a full-time writer. He frequently went on business trips, often leaving me alone at home. If nothing unexpected happened, Mike is probably enjoying a romantic evening with Kate right now. I quietly walked back to the room and put away the baby clothes I had already prepared. Just then, the door suddenly opened, and Mike came back. I was a bit taken aback, looking at Mike, and let a worried expression. "Why are you back?" Seeing me, Mike visibly relaxed and seemed happy. "I'm glad you're at home. I saw that you didn't reply to my message and was worried about you, so I rushed back," he said while handing me a box. "This is for you, your favorite candied chestnuts." I opened the box, and the steam rushed at me. Mike came over wanting to hug me. "Emily, please don't be angry. Okay. I went all the way around the city to buy you these chestnuts. Mike and I had agreed that if he made me angry, he would buy a bag of chestnuts to make up. But the seriousness of the situation is not that simple. I calmly blocked Mike's outstretched hand and said, "You're sweating a lot. Go wash up first." Mike replied, and was about to head to the bathroom when he suddenly noticed the folded baby clothes I had organized and stopped. "Emily, what are you doing with the baby's clothes? Didn't you just organize them a few days ago?" "Don't worry. The baby will definitely be born safely," I reassured him. After all, he is born into a loving family. I blinked hard, trying to hold back my tears. A family that loves each other, right? Just then, Mike's phone rang, showing a few new messages. I looked at the closed bathroom door and quietly unlocked my phone. Sure enough, they were all messages from Kate. "Mike, are you done with your work? Are you coming tonight? Mike, I really miss you." It feels like such sure as I scroll through their chat history. There are conversations almost every day. On my birthday, while making a wish over the cake, Mike messaged E. "I'm so bored. Kate, come out and chat." And when I was excited about being pregnant, Mike said, "I'm in a good mood today. Kate, wanna do something exciting?" I flipped through these records, feeling dazed. Every exchange they had was something I, as a wife, didn't know about. It seems I am the outsider. At that moment, the bathroom door opened, and Mike walked in. "Why are you sitting on the floor? Get up. The floor is cold. Sitting there for too long isn't good for you." He said this while trying to pull me up. When he saw my red-rimmed eyes, he paused for a moment. I hoarsely asked, "How long have you and Kate been together?" Mike noticed the chat history I had opened, and his expression instantly became serious. Then, he suddenly knelt in front of me and urgently said, "I swear, she is really my sister." After that day, Mike seemed to want to prove something and decisively took a half-month leave. During this time, he stayed by my side, even handing his phone over to me for safekeeping. But I still found the spare phone he had hidden in the study. The lock screen password turned out to be our wedding anniversary. I opened the contacts, and there was only one name, Kate. Their chat history stopped at the night before I fell asleep. "Mike, if you don't come to see me soon, I'm going to make a scene." Mike replied, "Okay, he'll try to get out and find you." I looked at Mike in the kitchen. He was busy making old duck soup. Seeing me looking at him, he hurried over and asked with concern, "What's wrong? Emily? What do you want?" I shook my head and casually made up a reason, saying that Sarah had an urgent matter and I needed to step out. Mike immediately picked up a coat nearby and asked what was so urgent, wanting to accompany me. He even squatted down to help me put on my shoes, his movements particularly gentle. I quickly refused, saying it wasn't necessary, as Sarah would come to pick me up later. Just as I was about to leave, Mike suddenly hugged me tightly, saying, "Emily, be safe." I looked up at him and found his eyes filled with worry. But just 10 minutes after leaving the community, I saw Mike coming out as well. I took a taxi and followed him. Sure enough, Mike went to find Kate. As soon as they got in the car, the two couldn't wait to start getting intimate. I took a few screenshots from the surveillance in Mike's car and sent them to him. He was busy and didn't reply to me. I sat alone on the beach for a long time before getting up to go home. On the way, I unexpectedly ran into Kate. "Emily, what a coincidence." I noticed the obvious red marks on Kate's neck and couldn't help but smile. "What a coincidence. What do you want from me?" Kate deliberately pulled down her collar to show off more of the red marks. "I know you saw what happened in the car just now." "That's right. Mike and I have been together for 3 years, just a year later than you two getting married. Now Mike's heart and body are both with me. If I were you, I would have divorced him already to avoid further humiliation." I coldly stared at her and replied, "That's only natural. Trash should go back to the dump." After saying that, I didn't want to engage with her any longer and turned to leave. Just then, a blinding white light in the distance hurt my eyes. The next moment, a painful impact hit my body. Before losing consciousness, I saw Mike running towards me with a worried expression. When I woke up again, I found myself in the hospital. When Mike saw me open my eyes, he immediately leaned over, gently stroking my face, his expression full of concern. "Emily, how are you? I'll go call the doctor. Just wait here." After saying that, he hurriedly ran out. He didn't even remember to press the call button. The doctor came to check, and it turned out there were no major issues, just some bruises. Hearing this, Mike let out a sigh of relief. He placed the porridge he had cooked in front of me and said, "Emily, you've been asleep for so long. This really scared me. I thought I was going to lose you. This is the porridge I made when I got home this morning. Have a little." I nodded and silently ate a few bites. After feeding me a few bites obsessively, Mike finally spoke. "Emily, her child. Why, I had imagined many times how Mike would react to the news that the baby was not born. But I never expected it to be now. I couldn't help but sneer. Because this child was destined to be unhappy." Mike flung the bowl in his hand and angrily said, "Why did you make that decision on your own? Had you considered the feelings of the children's father? That is a wife. Emily, how can you be so heartless?" I looked at him and asked, "Did you consider your wife's feelings during the 3 years with Kate?" Mike's expression suddenly turned grim, and he coldly said, "Emily, I've told you many times, I have nothing to do with her. Can you stop making unreasonable scenes?" I pulled up a screenshot from the surveillance and asked with a sneer, "How do you explain this photo? You weren't together. You were just casual partners, right?" I continued to press him. Mike, what does it mean that you kneeled down to beg for my forgiveness?" Mike angrily threw the bowl he was holding to the ground and shouted, "Enough. You just woke up and your emotions are unstable. I don't want to argue with you." After I finished speaking, I turned to look at Kate in the next room. Mike immediately turned and left the room without hesitation. I stared blankly at the broken pieces on the ground, then took out my phone and logged into Mike's alternate account. The first message is from Kate. "I've arranged for the vehicle and driver. As soon as she shows up, we'll hit her." And Mike responded with a gesture. I suddenly remembered that before I left that day, Mike hugged me tightly and reminded me to stay safe. A chill rose from the bottom of my feet. This whole thing was premeditated. This car accident was designed by Kate. Mike also knew about this news. They actually want my life. The immense shock left me momentarily speechless. Without having time to think further, I quickly left the hospital room and completed the discharge procedures, leaving only my wedding ring and the signed divorce agreement on the hospital bed. With my luggage in hand, I headed to Germany alone until I boarded the plane. Mike still hadn't realized I had been discharged. Coincidentally, the staff on this flight were Mike's colleagues. While I was in the restroom, I overheard them discussing Kate, saying she took leave because she was pregnant. That's right. I heard she's already 3 months alone. It seems she'll soon be celebrating her and Mike's sweet news. Why do I feel like Mike isn't keen on marriage? Kate is pregnant with Mike's child. It's been 3 months. If I hadn't miscarried, my child would also be 3 months old now. After experiencing such calculations, I have to ponder this coincidence. Clearly, my child, which Mike and I worked so hard for years to conceive, was easily conceived by Kate. Could it be a swap? The knock on the bathroom door interrupted my thoughts. I dared not think further, and just wanted to get away from Mike and Kate as soon as possible. As soon as I got off the plane, my phone kept buzzing with message notifications. When I looked, they were all from Mike. "Emily, where have you been? Why are you suddenly being discharged? Your injuries aren't healed yet. Emily, are you causing trouble because of Kate again? Hurry up and reply to me. What do the wedding ring and divorce agreement you left on the hospital bed mean?" I quickly replied, asking for a speedy divorce. Then I blocked Mike's account. I didn't expect Mike to find me the day after I settled down in Germany. He seemed to have aged quite a bit in just a few days. I stood at the door and coldly asked him, "Have you signed the divorce agreement?" Mike ignored my words, pushed me aside, and walked into the house, asking, "Emily, what on earth are you causing a fuss about?" "I'm just checking on Kate. As for the divorce," I chuckled lightly. "Just because you checked on Kate?" Mike, do you really not know that you're cheating during the marriage?" I asked bluntly. His smile immediately froze. "Emily, you keep fixating on mess. It's really pointless. Don't run off so far next time when you're angry. It's not easy to come here," he added. "This is an apology gift for you." He handed over a box. I ignored his words and opened the box directly. Inside was a necklace. exactly like the one Kate wore when she came to see me that day. And the pendant was engraved with Kate's name. A chill ran through me. I threw the box hard at Mike. Are you giving me something Kate doesn't want? Mike looked unconcerned. Kate isn't just anyone. She doesn't have time to buy you a new one right now. We'll get you another one when we go back. Besides, you don't like these accessories anyway. So it's good enough. I looked at Mike in front of me and deeply realized that he was no longer the person I once knew. I don't want to be entangled with him any longer. If we aren't getting a divorce, then get out of here quickly. Mike heard my words, suddenly stood up, and shouted at me. What the hell are you going crazy for? You hid from me that you had an abortion. And I put up with it. Now you're throwing a tantrum and running abroad. I came all this way with a gift to cheer you up. Why do you still want a divorce? I coldly looked up at Mike and said, do you still not understand why I had an abortion? It's okay. He's pregnant with another child. Upon hearing this, Mike's earlier dominance immediately vanished. How do you know? I showed him the chat records where Kate was boasting to me. Mike panicked, hurried over to hold my hand, and said, Emily, I was wrong. Please forgive me. This was completely an accident. Don't worry. After the child is born, I will sever ties with Kate. You know, the child is hard to come by. I really can't bear it. I irritably shook off his hand, only to find that he had put a ring on my finger. This is the wedding ring I left on the hospital bed. Emily, I put it back on for you. Please don't divorce me, okay? I can't imagine life without you. I smiled bitterly, thinking this was impossible. Then I took off the ring and casually tossed it into the nearby trash can. Mike wanted to rush over to stop me, but it was too late. His brow was furrowed, his voice filled with obvious anger. Emily, I won't argue with you about this. The ring can be bought again, but you must come back to my country with me today. All the savings at home are known only to you. You need to help me find them. It was only at this moment that I understood Mike's true purpose for coming. For the savings, most of our family's assets are in the savings book, hidden well, and only I know the exact location. Now that we are getting a divorce, Mike naturally wants to have control over the savings book, and since I found out he was with Kate, he has never felt guilty towards me and even colluded with Kate to frame me. Looking at Mike in front of me, I couldn't help but laugh, feeling more and more that our marriage was simply a joke. All right, once we are divorced, I'll tell you where the savings book is. But Mike didn't give up. Emily, I absolutely cannot divorce you. There is still love between us. I still love you. I don't want a divorce. The security I called is already waiting outside the door. Under my instructions, Mike was apprehended by the security. I watched him struggle desperately and clearly said, but since that day, Mike has been messaging me every day. The weather in Berlin is bad today. Remember to take an umbrella when you go out. The flowers you planted have already withered at home. When will you come back to take a look? Even though I never replied, he still insisted on messaging. As for the divorce, he hasn't mentioned it at all. Just then, a director contacted me to discuss the script, so I stopped considering divorce. At the same time, I handed over the chat records and videos related to the car accident that Kate designed to the police station. I am not clear about the outcome of the punishment. Not long after, I received Mike's call for the first time. As soon as I answered the phone, he ruthlessly accused me. Emily, why did you report to the police station? You weren't seriously injured, were you? It's been so long since the incident. Why can't you let go? Did you know? Kate is pregnant now. I chuckled lightly. After all, that's not. What does it have to do with me? Instead of blaming me here, you might as well hurry up and sign the divorce papers. Mike was silent for a moment. His tone softened as he said, Emily, please don't get a divorce, okay? I don't love Kate. I only love you. If it weren't for her being pregnant, I would have broken up with her long ago. You know how difficult it was for us to plan for a baby. Yeah, I replied. He clearly knows how hard it was to plan for a baby. Yet he still cheated on me with other women. I put my phone on speaker and asked, do you love me? So you have a child with another woman? I continued to ask, do you love me? So you plot an accident with Kate to harm me? Upon hearing this, Mike quickly denied. I didn't. Emily, I knew about this. but I thought Kate was just talking nonsense. I didn't expect she would actually do something like this. Hadn't you given her a lesson now? I didn't respond. The scene fell into silence, just like the coldness in my heart. Completely icy. After a long time, Mike finally spoke up. If you don't want to go back home, then tell me where the family savings book is. Kate is pregnant. Kate is pregnant. I have to give her the best. I scoffed, thinking how naive that was. Immediately, I hung up the phone. The savings book? It's long gone. The money has already been transferred to my account. 6 months later, my script won the Best Screenwriter Award. I boarded the flight back home. As soon as I got on the plane, I saw Mike at the cabin door. He saw me and came over to help me with my luggage and find my seat. Seemingly unfazed. After putting down the luggage, he took my hand. I looked up and found deep affection in his eyes. Emily, I miss you so much. When I saw your flight information, I immediately swapped shifts with my colleague, just to accompany you back home. I shook off his hand. Mr. Smith, please have some self-respect. Mike looked at me in surprise, wanting to grab my hand again, but was interrupted by a passenger who came up to ask a question. All the way, Mike occasionally lingered around me. He would sometimes hand me a cup of hot water, a prepared dinner, and occasionally offer me a blanket. Until the plane landed, he specifically handed me the small lamp he had prepared for my makeup. I gladly accepted it, but didn't show much reaction. After all, these are services I paid for. However, Mike didn't seem to think so. As soon as we got off the plane, Mike hurriedly grabbed my arm and asked, Emily, where are you going? He said, my car is outside. Let's go home together. I looked up at him, thinking to myself, huh? What home do I have here? Mike wanted to take my suitcase, but his hand stopped in my dress. Eddie frowned, asking, what do you mean? Are you still thinking about divorcing me? He continued, Emily, it's been half a year. You should be done with this by now. What husband treats his wife like I do? You hid from me that you aborted our child, and I can still be so forgiving. I pulled my suitcase back, feeling quite disappointed. Mike, it's been 6 months, and you still haven't realized your mistakes. What husband has been married for 4 years but has made his wife wear a green hat for 3 years? Mike's expression darkened as he strode over, grabbing my hand with such force that I had no chance to break free. Regardless, you must come home with me today. A sense of inexplicable fear enveloped me. I struggled with all my might to shake off his grip, but it was futile. Just as Mike was about to pull me into the elevator, a sudden force separated us. I looked over and saw my German friend Nick. He had left a day earlier and had come specifically to pick me up from the airport. Nick immediately positioned himself behind me, keeping a wary eye on Mike. Then, he distinctly asked, Emily, is this your ex-husband? I nodded, seeing Nick on the alert. Mike asked, Emily, who is this? I deliberately stepped forward, gently linking my arm with Nick's, and said nonchalantly, it's none of your business. Nick immediately understood, pointing at Mike and warning, don't disturb Emily. Mike, filled with rage, stepped forward, yanking Nick away from me and shouted, don't touch her, or are you to order me around? Emily, we are not divorced yet. Is this all you're going to do to me? I smiled and said to him, you know we're still not divorced, right? Then why did you have a child with Kate? Mike's bravado instantly vanished. He stood there, stunned, unable to utter a word of rebuttal. I signaled to Nick that he could go, and then he helped me lift the suitcase and walked out of the airport. As I sat in the car, I saw Mike still standing there in a daze, seemingly not having come to his senses. He looked down at my wrist that Mike had grabbed earlier, and softly said to Nick, who was driving, let's go. Mike was no longer the person I once loved deeply. He had completely changed without me even realizing it. I no longer wanted to be soft-hearted towards him. The next day, I stood on stage to receive the Best Screenwriter Award. At that moment, my identity as a screenwriter was in the spotlight, and I felt glorious. After the award banquet, I ran into Kate at the entrance, dressed simply in maternity clothes. At this point, Kate's belly was swollen, and her figure was bulky. She looked nothing like the flight attendant she used to be. The last car accident was still fresh in my mind, and I didn't want as much contact with Kate anymore. I wanted to pretend I didn't see her and just walk past. I didn't expect her to stop me. Emily, why did you come back? Do you know that my child with Mike is about to be born? Why come back when we were the happiest? Why do you keep ruining my happiness? I stood there, expressionless, staring at Kate. Miss Shen, if I remember correctly, Mike and I are still legally married. You are the third party, right? Kate is still lost in her emotions. Why did you come back? It would have been better without you. Last time you took him away. This time you won't be so lucky. Hearing this, my mind collapsed instantly. Kate's reaction is abnormal. I quickly hid behind a pillar, just as a car sped by. At that moment, a sudden force from behind pulled me away, diverting me from the vehicle's path. Surrounding me were the harsh sounds of brakes and screams. Mike's voice echoed above me, sounding particularly tense. Emily, are you okay? Are you hurt? I didn't have time to respond to Mike. My gaze turned to the accident scene. Kate was seen lying in a pool of blood. Fortunately, the child was saved. But Kate's injuries were severe, and she still needed to be monitored in the intensive care unit. Due to being premature, the child had to stay in the hospital. Before I could ask for details, the driver at fault took the initiative to admit responsibility. Just like last time, all of this was arranged by Kate. She remains unrepentant and wants my life. I listened silently, my gaze shifting to the sleeping baby in the premature care unit. Because he was premature, he appeared smaller than other babies, with a breathing mask on his little face. Lying there quietly, he looked especially pitiful. If my child were still here, he might be about the same size as him. I couldn't help but think of the tiny embryo that I had personally decided to give up. I blinked, trying hard to hold back my tears. Never mind. Reporting to the police last time was my lesson to Kate. Just as I was about to leave, I was suddenly grabbed by the wrist by Mike. Emily. His voice was somewhat hoarse. I looked up and was surprised to find tears shimmering in the corners of his eyes. Kate just went to observe. Don't worry. Everything will be fine. I tried to comfort him. However, Mike shook his head and looked at me sadly. After spending a long time together, I understood what was on his mind. He was reminiscing and regretting the child we both hoped for. The child we had been looking forward to for years. I sighed and said, "Take good care of Kate and your child. They need you. Prepare yourself in the next few days. We will go get the divorce certificate." After saying that, I was about to turn and leave, but Mike still held my wrist tightly. Emily, don't leave me, okay? If you leave again, I won't be able to handle it. Is this moral torture? I couldn't help but laugh. Mike, the situation today was caused by you. Don't shift the blame to me. Emily, it's not like that. Look, Kate's child has already been born. We can take the child home to raise ourselves. Besides, my relationship with Kate is over, and there will be no more contact. Emily, if we don't divorce, we can happily be a family of 3. That's utterly shameless. I couldn't help but slapped him. Mike, what makes you think I would raise your and Kate's child? At this moment, your responsibility is to take care of Kate and the child, not to pretend to be affectionate in front of me. See you at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 8 tomorrow morning. The next day, at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I had already anticipated that Mike couldn't show up. I didn't care either and boarded the flight to Germany again. Although I wasn't divorced yet, I had to stay away from the ticking time bomb that was Mike and Kate. Preserving my life was the most important. After winning the Best Screenwriter award, I received many invitations to write. Every day I sat in front of the computer, engrossed in writing, almost isolated from the world. I saw Mike again 2 months later when I returned to discuss collaboration with a new director. I don't know how Mike found out, but he actually showed up at the airport to pick me up. In just 2 months, he looked so haggard that I almost didn't recognize him. He had completely lost the handsome flight attendant look from before. It seemed that the child and Kate had put a lot of pressure on him. I looked at Mike, wondering if he was here to ask me for a divorce. Just so happens that I have time today. But he shook his head in denial. Is our only topic divorce? Emily, can we not get divorced? I can't bear to lose you. His words took me by surprise. I noticed there was still baby formula on his pants, and I couldn't help but frown. When he said he couldn't bear to part with me, was it really just for that reason? Or did he not want to continue living a life of early mornings and late nights scaring for kids? Mike, neither Kate nor I have ever been your backup choice. I bluntly said, let's divorce sooner. It's better for me, the kids, and Kate. His face instantly turned pale, as if he wanted to kneel down and beg me. No, Emily, please don't give up on me. I'm the one who wronged you. Please give me a chance to make it up to you. Between Kate and me, there's no connection left except for the kids. Can you forgive me? Emily, the one I love most in my heart is you. Do you see me as a backup option? I didn't look at him again and coldly said, from the moment you knew Kate planned the car accident to hurt me, but chose not to stop it. We were never meant to be. A broken mirror is hard to piece back together. Mike, cherish the person in front of you. After saying that, I turned and left. Mike stood frozen in place, unable to regain his composure for a long time. Mike didn't want a divorce, so I had no choice but to go through legal proceedings. I submitted all the evidence of his infidelity over the years, and the court quickly ruled that he would leave with nothing. Everything was moving in a positive direction. On the day of the hearing, Mike arrived as promised. Compared to our last meeting, he looked even more haggard. His appearance was disheveled, and I could smell an odor when I got closer. His eyes were filled with weariness towards life, but when he saw me, a glimmer suddenly flashed in his eyes. Emily, can we not get a divorce? I really can't imagine a life without you. Emily, why are you so determined to get a divorce? Do you no longer love me? I shook my head firmly. There was no need for more words. Let's go in. Mike stood there, not expecting me to be so resolute. In the courtroom, Mike hesitated for a long time with a pen over the divorce agreement, but ultimately signed his name. I sighed in relief. It was finally time to end all of this. Not long after, the divorce certificate was issued. As I walked out of the court, Mike still couldn't accept it. He tightly held onto my clothes and asked, Emily, do we really have no future? I pulled my clothes away forcefully and replied, no, we don't. Moreover, I will always feel ashamed to have you as my ex-husband. After saying that, I turned and left. Behind me, Mike seemed unable to bear it any longer, suddenly covering his face with his hands and squatting down on the ground, crying uncontrollably. Meanwhile, I settled in Germany with millions in assets, enjoying the freedom that belongs to me.